Hi, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we are looking at meeting the self-assessment deadline with remote teams, and it's hosted by myself, Natasha Kobrak, and my colleague, Dean Shepherd. So just a little bit about who we are. My name is Natasha Kobrak. I'm a lead product manager for cloud applications here at Wolters Kluwer. I've been working at Wolters Kluwer for over 5 years now, actually, and I have about 16 years worth of experience in product management across collaboration type software, document sharing, specifically for enterprise applications. My colleague Dean Shepherd is the lead product manager for our compliance solutions. He has over 20 years experience as a practicing accountant, so he's very best placed to be managing applications such as CCH Personal Tax, CCH Accounts Production. He actually used to own his own practice before he joined Wolters Kluwer, so he'd be a valuable asset, especially when we come to our Q&A at the end of the session. So how will this session be working? We will be running 30-minute little talk and demonstration, plus we will have time for some questions as well. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to enter those in your control panel just on the side of your screen, and at the end we will answer those. If for any reason we're not able to answer them, if we run out of time, rest assured that we will be answering them outside of this session, and we'll be circulating answers together with the recording of the session as well, just for anyone who has registered and wanted to attend but couldn't on the day, or maybe any of your colleagues who wanted to attend as well. So what are we looking to cover today? So today we wanted to look at the self-assessment period, but specifically what we are seeing for the self-assessment period of 2020, what differences we may find, what peculiarities there may be, just looking at that whole process of self-assessment period, so data collection aspect, just reviewing information, approving it and submitting it, and a little bit of thoughts around what we might be seeing specifically this year. Because it really goes without saying that this year has really been unlike, I think, any other that many of us have experienced. It has become very hard to predict what is going to happen from one minute to the next. I think not only in our personal lives, but in our work lives as well. I think a lot of us are living lives that are quite different to maybe what we have been experiencing previously. And really, you know, with that self-assessment period being such a busy time of year, being so critical to the year of a tax advisor, and being, you know, mildly chaotic, I think, with this as well, it's quite normal to be concerned as to what impact this kind of current unprecedented situation will have on that process as a whole. You know, if we look at data collection, one of the most time-consuming aspects of preparing a tax return, all of that's chasing clients for data. I think what we normally find is that clients often see that submission of tax data that is so invaluable for the advisor to actually be able to do their work and do it on time. It really, for the client, it's seen as slightly peripheral to their day-to-day activities. Most of your end clients will not have submitting their tax data as part of their day jobs, so it often gets relegated to you know, maybe spare time or evenings when you know, people obviously end up having lots of other stuff to do, and then always saying, well, okay, maybe tomorrow, maybe tomorrow. So that's why it becomes so difficult. The tax advisor, for them, it's the essential part of getting their tax return information completed. and submitted and a job done. And for the client, it's just one of those little chores that you have to do in your free time. And so few people rather have free time nowadays. So that is the eternal issue and the eternal dichotomy of data, the data collection aspect for clients and for advisors. Clients just do not see, they just not feel as much pressure as advisors do to get that information back on time. So, a lot of this has resulted in that rush at the end of the year. A lot of advisors having to ensure that all of their staff are on hand and ready to work during those final couple of months to get all of those late submissions in. What are we seeing for 2020? So the reality of 2020 is that unpredictable nature of the world that we're living in at the moment. There's that looming impact of potentially more restrictions to people's freedom of movement. If you look at local lockdowns or the spur of the moment needs to self-isolate, it means that performing little chores and tasks like that becomes all the more harder for clients. If any client relies on hand delivering information or posting tax documentation back to their advisor, it can be risky. It can be risky in this situation when suddenly from one minute to the next, the post office might be closed or they might not be able to leave the house. In addition to that, a lot of tax advisors are working from home. So what does that mean? It means that employees might not be able to easily receive any information being sent by post. Even though a lot of people do send things by email, you still do have the odd client send things by post, and it's really those clients that run the risk with this, with some of the restrictions that we're seeing at the moment. So what we really say is we're really telling people and recommending practices to invest in digital tools. So digital tools that will enhance collaboration processes, that will allow clients to send information over virtually, but also securely as well, just to make sure that we're not caught in any situation which might involve more delays to that data collection process, something which has been a problem already in the past in normal times and can be even more problematic this year. So for tax return purposes here at Wolters Kluwer, we have digital data collection tools. They sit in our CCH One-Click suite and also can be accessed via CCH Central. It allows an advisor to send out that digital data request that they would be doing every year that clients can then respond to. And like I said, it can be done digitally, which again allows for clients to be doing it anywhere, and it allows for advisors to be able to receive it regardless of where they are working. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show our data collection tool that we have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into CCH Central. So CCH Central is a product that most advisors will be using day in, day out. All of our compliance products sit in here. It's really the bread and butter of our applications. So as the advisor is working in here, it really makes sense to start that journey from this particular area as well. And what the advisor can do to start off that process of sending out those data collections is he can choose to actually send them in bulk by ticking here and just highlighting any clients that he may want, or he can choose to send it to one client if he wants. And once he's done that and tick that checkbox, all he has to do is press data request. And that digital data request will go to his clients. Now, bear in mind, the clients do need to be activated CCH One-Click, but once they're activated, all you have to do is just click those buttons. And what it does is it pulls the tax information that is held in personal tax, and it will create a dedicated data request for that particular client based on sources of income they have inputted in the previous tax year. So they do have to have a previous tax year in the system in order to take full benefit of this, but it will then tailor that particular request to that client using those sources of income from the previous tax year. So that's really nice because it just saves information, it saves time rather, from the advisor who previously might have had to be curating a list for that particular client. So once that's been sent to the client will receive a notification that is sitting for them in their CCH one-click workspace. I'll just go into that now. So right now I am in my client Clark Kent's CCH one-click workspace. So Clark Kent has logged in, he's a client. He can see some tools available for him in here, and also he can see any advisors in the practice, maybe a partner and silent manager that might be dealing with his account. Now what we're going to be looking at here is a digital data request solution, because there is one sitting there for him. So you can go in and enter this area here, and you can see some that I created earlier. So one for some source of income here for this particular year, but it has other years that he can look at as well. So if I open up this particular tax year, you can see some information that's held. There's some source of income here that's ready for him to complete and that he has completed. There's information here from companies that he works for here, so company ABC, company XYZ, and also information here sitting from a particular UK property that he owns. If I open that one here, you can see information that has been entered from rental income. You can see a breakdown of expenses from property, and the client can enter all of this information into here, and it'll calculate here the total net income based on the income and the expenses that he has entered. If he happened to own this property jointly, he could tick that box and he could enter percentage share of ownership in there. And that's his kind of land and property information done. And once he's done that, what he can also do, I'll actually show that as well. A lot of the time with land and property, there may be some supporting documentation that he might want to attach, and he can actually choose to attach that into here and upload any attachments. And once he's done that, it actually goes directly back to the advisor at that point in time. So no messing about, sending emails, etc. It just goes straight back to the advisor, and the advisor will see it in there, and they'll be able to refine that information from there. So in addition to that, you'll see that there is employment income as well that he can enter, some UK interest, all of that information there that the clients can enter and just send it straight back to the advisor through here. So once that's done, what happens next? Then once the client has actually submitted all that information, marked it all as complete, meaning it goes straight back to the advisor. Once it's been notified, the advisor gets a notification that everything has been marked as complete, and they can then go in. I'm going to log out now and log in as my advisor to see what the advisor sees on their side. Once they get that notification that it's all been marked as complete. I'm going to log in here as the advisor, Bonnie Tyler, who does work for Clark Kent. So Bonnie Tyler has now logged in. This is her own CCH one-click workspace. She's got access to a lot of tools in here. And you can see many areas, got Making Tax Digital areas, ready-made for Making Tax Digital. Open integration as well will allow Bonnie Tyler to link up her clients to their bookkeeping applications and pull that data down into open integration. But what we're going to look at is the digital data review area, which is where she can review information that has been submitted by her client. So you can see here a couple of entries for Clark. There's the entries from his 1920 data and his 1819. You can see here the status. So she's actually approved this one already, and here the client's just updated, so she needs to be doing something on there. And then if she wants to review that information, she can just open it up through here. And if she wants, she can just expand all of the fields just to see what's being held in here. So you can see here that information from land and property that I mentioned earlier that Clark Kent had entered already. She can look at that. She can see any supporting attachments. She can see a breakdown of the information in here if she wants to go in a bit deeper. If she is actually managing any of the source of income for her client, so he lets her manage parts of that process, and she has the information, she holds it, she can actually enter it in here as well. So it becomes a collaborative approach to completing that data. She can pop it straight into there. And what's also interesting as well is that we do highlight any areas here that are coming from HMRC. So you can see anything that has a turquoise crown can be entered, can be viewed here, and it's coming straight from HMRC, straight from that client's digital tax account as well. So a few areas in there that are coming from HMRC at this point. Now, once that is done, it's got all the information here. There's a lot of information to be entered, lots of sources of income. What is really, really good about this area is that Bonnie Tyler, the advisor, can actually choose to select any source of income that she wants, maybe all of them, and just send them to the tax return. So just like and she's sending it directly down in CCH Central and CCH Personal Tax and populating that tax return straight away. So that really is a bit of a time saver, a bit of an efficiency improvement, I suppose, in the work she's doing, because obviously it saves a little bit of time, but also it does mean that it kind of does away with that risk of miskeying information, any typos with numbers, etc., which is really, really easy to do actually when you're doing a lot of kind of data entry work. So a little bit of a time saver there by sending that information down into the tax return. But what is also interesting as well that can be used, because really when that data has been safely collected and is sitting in CCH Personal Tax, what is generally the case that happens is that advisors like Bonnie Tyler will want to review that information. And we'll want to check to make sure that that information is okay and that it's good enough to be entered into the tax return. Because once the data's come from all the various sources, you have to review it, and that's really the second part of that process. The onus really this year is to do it as speedily as possible, because the more returns that can be closed earlier, the more information that you can do, you can enter up front, the more work you can do up front, it's the more time you have then to chase clients who may be struggling with data submission or even maybe some changes in circumstances. So efficiency improvements like this are really helpful, and also having access to areas such as a digital tax account from HMRC. So if I go into the Making Tax Digital area, I'm going to open up Clark Kent, who again is the client that Bonnie Tyler is working with. And you can see here the digital tax accounts for each of the tax years comes from HMRC, can be seen through here. Also worth mentioning, it's actually accessible through Central as well. Access to HMRC's digital tax account information can really be helpful during this process, but it's worth actually mentioning at this point that HMRC only populates the digital tax account information when that information becomes available. So it's really worth noting that. Historically, this actually has been in September. So a lot of the time, your client will be entering that data. You may not have access to the digital tax account information yet, to that data collection screen. So once you've got all that data back from your client, when that data gets, the digital tax account information does get populated by HMRC and becomes available, which is later on in that year, at that point, you can use it as a way of reviewing the information that your client has sent and sense checking it. It really allows you to cross-reference that information, just speeds up that process. If I actually go into this particular tax year here. Let's open up some of the information that you've got in here. So this is the digital tax account information that we hold in CCH OneClick. It's really nice with CCH OneClick, so you do have all of this stuff in one place. It helps. You don't have to keep logging into HMRC in order to get that information from HMRC for your client. You just go into your client and you see information that they've sent, information that has come down from HMRC as well, and you can really cross-reference that. So here on this page, you can see in the main part of the screen information that has come from the digital tax account that is sitting there. Any information, employment benefits here, some notes here on other employments that they've had too. But what is also pretty good is that if you have pushed any information down into personal tax data collection, or if you happen to have any information already in their tax return, you can actually compare anything that's being held on this side of the screen, the information that's held in digital tax account, with information that's held in Central, in TCH Central, on the right hand side of the screen as well. So it allows you to compare and contrast to see if there are any maybe problem areas, anything that looks wildly different. If something is very different to what HMRC hold for that particular client, then it is a bit of a red flag. You'll want to understand why it's so different. Often in that case, you may have to go back to source, so HMRC source for that data, and amend it there. But if there is any information that your client hasn't given you or that you don't hold in that client and you want to pull it from the digital tax account, you can do that through here. So you can actually choose to select anything that you want to use in a particular tax return, maybe this particular entry here, and you can just go ahead and press send to tax return. And what that will do is it pull down, again, just like with data collection, it will pull that information down from the digital tax account, the information HMRC holds, and it will populate it down into CCH Central. So again, it really is about speeding up some of the things that we can speed up, some of the known information that we have, anything that we get from the client, push straight down. Information that we get from HMRC, albeit tends to be around September time, you get that information, you want to use it, you push it straight down into CCH Central, really frees up some of that time that you'd otherwise be doing with data entry work, and it does allow you to start chasing up for some of the data that you may not have received, other clients maybe that have been having a bit more difficulties, a bit more advisory work that you need to be doing this particular year. So that is the digital tax account information that we also hold CCH OneClick. And again, like I said, you can actually access this through CCH Central as well. It sits within the client's personal tax return. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to pop back into CCH Central. And if I go into my client, Clark Kent, what I'm going to do is I will open up a tax return, and I'm going to show you what we want to do at this point. Let's see if I'm going to use this particular tax return, because once you've got all the information down from HMRC, from your client self, if there's any information that you happen to be managing as well, and you've put all of that information in to your client's tax return, then what you want to do at that point in time is you're going to want your client to approve it. So you've reviewed it on your side, but you need your client to approve that information next. So what you do is you create a tax return bundle that bundles up all that information for your client to review. And straight from this area here in personal tax, all you have to do is you just press publish to OneClick. And what it does is it creates a message. So if any of you use messages and documents, this is pulled from that area. It populates that little bundle, pops it into a message for your client, and it attaches it in there for your client to review. And I could just go ahead, and I'm going to enter some information in here. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm actually going to choose to mark this this attachment, this tax return information to be approved by the client. Okay. So again, similar to the data collection process and the collecting information from HMRC directly as well, this is another area where we see digital tools really facilitating that process of remote working, of having teams working disparate locations, having employees working from home, having clients who may not be able to leave the house. These digital tools can really facilitate that process, sending over that completed return, getting that digital approval. And we really recommend that advisors focus on the ability to give digital approvals, because things like being able to sign off certain documents using wet signatures, again, that may or may not rely on post, it can be very difficult. So digital approvals, again, key for this tax year. And I mentioned 2020, very likely next year as well, we will be seeing a big shift. I think that we have been propelled to make this year to using this type of features, these collaborative features. So in this case here, we're going to be using a standard approval. I'm just going to send that now to my client. What's really nice actually about it being linked to the client in CCH Central, rather than downloading it and sending it by email, is that we know that it goes directly to that client. Sometimes if you download a document and you attach it to an email, we do run that risk of sending it to the wrong person. I'm sure no one has ever done that before, but people can be a bit nervous about that. What is the real USP, I think, of this client-centric approach to Central is that when you send a document from the client record, it goes to that client. You can't physically send it to another client. So you know that confidential information has gone to them, and real data confidentiality and security is really key at this point in time. So that has been sent off to the client. What we'll do now is we'll just log back in to the client's workspace, the one we went into previously. That's Clark Kent. Let's log in as him, and we can have a look at that tax return information that was sent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log in to the messages and documents area in Clark Kent, the client's one-click workspace. I'm going to just open this up. And you can see straight away there are quite a few messages, a few documents sitting there waiting for him, and also a lot of approvals here to do. If I go into my messages, let's have a little bit of a version here. You can see a few bits of correspondence that he's had with different members of the practice. This is the one that I sent just now. So if I open that up, you can see that information here. I'm sure that when you send something like that, you will send it with some much nice accompanying information. But it's probably worth mentioning that in Central, you can actually set up message templates, so specific practice approved wording that you want your employees to use, that has been sense checked by partners maybe, and when the person who's sending that tax return, it might be someone junior or it might be someone new, when they are sending that information over, they could actually choose to just pull a message, a particular template in, which will just populate wording in, and it will pull information of that client into that message. And then you'd have a nice scripted bit of wording into here as well, just to really formalize that whole sending of the draft tax return. At this point, the client is seeing the message that he's received. He can see here the tax return bundle. He can open that up if he wants. And actually, we do have a feature that enforces the client to open that before he approves it. A lot of practices, some practices actually don't know about this, but a lot of practices who do use it do like that added level of restriction. It means that the client can't just go and tick this box and just approve it. And you can see straight away it says view this document prior to approval, so you can't physically approve it without opening. So I'll just open that up now. I've downloaded it here. And it just gives that extra sense that they've had to physically open it, and they can't say, oh, I accidentally ticked the box. So I'm going to tick it now, and I'm going to press approve. So once Sam's pressed approve, all they have to do is enter their password, just give that final level of confirmation that it is them. And that is it. And the document has been approved. You can see it says that there. Now, this is a very simple approval mechanism. Some people like using that form of approval. They like using something relatively simple with their clients. Some practices like using digital signing tools. So maybe they want the client to actually enter a digital signature into a box, something that mimics a handwritten signature. Often actually that's used more for things like contracts, maybe a set of accounts where you actually formally want to enter a signature into maybe a PDF document, so it's part of the actual document. But some people might want to use it as a tax return. It really depends on the practice, the level of restrictions of the practice, and also possibly the demographic of client that you might be using it with. Here at Wolters Kluwer, we are actually working on a digital signature tool as well, which we are aiming to come out with at the beginning of next year. And this will allow you to publish documents from Central in the same way you do here through messages and documents, but instead of requesting a basic approval, you'll actually be able to format the document and for someone to actually put in a digital signature into that particular document. So definitely watch out for that because we have had a lot of practices asking for that, and it's something pretty exciting that we are working on that's going to be there next year. Okay, cool. So that is the messages and documents area. So that really is the data collection process. That was the reviewing the data that you've got back, comparing it to HMRC, comparing it to information that you've got in CCH Central, and then sending it out for approval. Now, obviously, the submission part of it, a lot of people will have been doing already. CCH Personal Tax allows for submissions to be done straight from CCH Central. We do a very large percentage of UK submissions every year, so we do cater for that. One thing that we think here at Wolters Kluwer, just to make sure, just this particular year, that that we're not going to have an even larger rush of work at the end of 2020 because of all of these changes in circumstance people are experiencing, because of delays of sending information over, all of that stuff combined. What we say is for people to really maybe have a check at this point in time. We're in October right now. Have a check to see, there are reporting tools in Central that allow you to check how many submissions you did last year, and you could check versus how many submissions you have done at this point this year. So just check where you were in October last year, check where you are now, and see if there's a very large discrepancy, because if there is a large discrepancy and you haven't noticed a large discrepancy in actual clients that you're servicing, you may find that you will have that rush, and it will allow you to have that information up front and maybe try and mitigate it by really getting on top of your clients. If you're in the same position, if you have as many submissions done now in October as you did last year, you're probably okay. But if you're seeing that there's a difference there, you've got substantially less submissions done because people are stalling on the data, because there's too many changes in circumstances that people are having to work through, you may well see a rush. So it's worth getting on top of that. It's worth looking at some of the reports that we hold in CCH Central, because even though the payment deadline for July 2020 was extended, there really isn't a guarantee that something similar could be happening this year to the 31st of January deadline. So it's really important to keep that close eye on where you are with client submissions, and really possibly remind clients of the importance of early submissions, especially this year of all years. So that's our final note really there on submissions, and making sure that you are on top of that this year especially. So that's a little talk wants to do a little bit of a demo on some of the tools that we have here. The data collection tools, probably worth mentioning actually that we do have a number of practices, a lot of clients using our data collection tools. The data collection tool specifically was free the last couple of years. We will be charging for it from April next year, so do bear that in mind. But if you want to, you can test it out yourself and see what it's like with a couple of clients before rolling it out. If you do choose to use it, we have had a lot of practices using it over the last couple of years. It's been very effective. But we are charging for it as of April. Please speak to your account manager if you have any questions regarding some of the charges. The digital tax account information that I mentioned, that information comes down from HMRC. It's actually included, that is all included with your CCH one-click workspace standard £20 a month fee. You can actually access all the digital tax account information from there, push it down to your client, so that's absolutely free with CCH one-click. And messages and documents, you are charged per client to use it. It becomes part of your client's one-click workspace. However, the nice part about that is that if you do use messages and documents, you're not charged anymore for syncing up the client with their bookkeeping products or allowing them to submit VAT returns. Actually all included as part of that client access to CCH one-click. So just bear that in mind. Please speak to your account manager if you have any questions around that. So great. So I think now we can probably go to some questions.
Thank you, Natasha. I've just been monitoring the questions section and seen a couple come in there, so I'll address those. We've got one question here. Can we use digital data requests now, or do we have to wait until the beginning of the next tax season? With that one, I would say there's absolutely an opportunity to use it now. As Natasha said, there's no charge for using it with any number of clients but between now and next tax season. Some of our practices have been using it quite effectively as a chase up for those clients that haven't provided any information as yet for their tax return, and it's a good opportunity to test which of your clients are more receptive to these to this type of tool and a digital way of providing that information that perhaps they haven't been quite so receptive to providing the information up until this point. So I think any opportunity to try a different way of getting information in a bit quicker and a bit more accurately from clients is always a good shout. So yeah, absolutely, anybody can use this tool now. Don't have to wait until next tax season. I've got another question. Does the tax return information sent by the client reset every year? No, it basically generates a new request each tax year for the information, and that will reside in the client workspace or your workspace within CCH one-click. So you don't lose any of that historic information that was provided by the client in previous years, and actually that acts as a very useful reference point, I think, and a store for the client. So if you have used this tool already this year and clients have provided that information and that is stored in the tool and the client can access it when they log into CCH one-click, then that will remain there for as long as you want it to remain there. So when you come to next tax season and you ask for the information, the client will already be able to see in CCH one-click the information that they provided last year. So it should help them be able to provide the same kind of information each year. And of course, if they want copies of any of that information from the previous year, then it's stored securely in CCH one-click and they can access it and pull it down at any time. So they don't need to go hunting for where they put last year's tax documents as well. I've got one more question about the messages and documents. Can that be used for approving accounts as well as tax returns? Absolutely, it can be used for approving any documents really that don't require a wet signature. We've spoken to lots of practices recently about the approval of accounts, because that is a big shift for some practices. Many of our customers have been using CCH One-Click for approving all documents, really, accounts, tax returns, engagement letters, any form that requires client approval, and without any issue from HMRC and Companies House with regard to the digital signing of accounts rather than a wet signature. I think there is a little bit of misunderstanding across some practice about what is required for approval to be submitting accounts to Companies House, and a digital mechanism is perfectly acceptable to many of the practices that we work with. So yeah, absolutely, tax returns and accounts. That's all the questions that have come in today. If there are any questions that you wanted to raise or come to you at a later point, then please do get in touch. If you want to find more about any of these tools, learn about them, then go to all the usual channels, whether that's speaking to your account manager, or going to our new customer community site, or looking at the online training that we've got there. Otherwise, thank you very much for giving up your time to join us today, and best of luck with this tax season, and we'll look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thank you.